sharing the inspiration one guest at a time. This is the Beyond Barriers Unscripted podcast. I did like reading out loud. I did. And like I said, because I was born blind, I had the opportunity to learn Braille at a relatively young age.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Randy Owen.
I'm Brandie Kubel.
In this episode, Brandie and I sit down with Satauna Howery.
Satauna is a much sought-after voice talent, advocate, entrepreneur, and businesswoman. She was kind enough to sit down with us and have a conversation.
Before we get started, we'd like to ask that if you enjoy the show, to please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share with a friend. If you don't like the show, well, share with an enemy. Anyways, if you got any feedback, questions, or comments, ideas for the show, you can email Brandie or myself at bb.unscripted@gmail.com.
And now, our conversation with Satauna. Okay, first and foremost, Satauna,
Brandie,
give me my favorite line. Oh my God, he barfed on the dog. Oh. Give me my favorite cartoon voice ever.
the baby threw up on the dog and the dog is eating it. Oh my gosh, I love that voice.
That is my favorite cartoon voice. And it's so funny.
Oh, there's this.
I do that voice around the house whenever I find something that Tigger's done. I'm like, oh my God, Tigger has left a big giant mess in the kitchen. I love her voices. I love your voices.
Hi, everybody.
Got Beavis and Butthead going on.
So if you may have wondered, we have a voice talent today on the show. Satauna Howery, Brandie Kubel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. It is. It's afternoon for all of us. It's past 1 p.m.
It's almost
for you
evening
guys,
where you're at, right?
5 o'clock somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Not quite, but it's definitely, it's Friday too. We're recording on a Friday.
yeah.
I don't know how long it takes you to get these things out, but for all of you listening, just imagine that it's Friday night, your weekend is upon you, and you can relax with whatever thingamajig you want, a cocktail or whatever it is that you imbibe with. It's great for you. Okay, I'm not the host of this podcast.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. We're taking notes. We're taking pointers.
Yeah.
You're the professional here.
So cool.
Should we just hit her with the $1 million question, Brandie?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I am, therefore I am. No. So the $1 million question.
It's a $1 million question. Wow.
Can you
That's
introduce
exciting.
yourself and talk to us about how you got started?
Oh, that's the $1 million question.
I have the $1 million and one question after this.
Ooh, okay. All right. I think I can relax. I think I can do that. Hi, I'm Satauna Howery. I'm a voice actor. I get to run my mouth all day long and get paid for it. People send me things they want me to read out loud, and I get to do that, and it's really, really fun. So I would say I'm also an advocate for audio description, and I was born blind. And there's a cuddly little Braille Sense YouTube Braille display in front of me, which has nothing to do with who I am. Well, it does, because I love Braille. I'm such a Braille fan and a Braille user, and yeah, Braille. So let's see. What else can I say? I'm a white middle-aged female, and I do everything in voiceover, from audio description to if you want to be placed on hold, press 1. If you'd like to be disconnected, press 2. All that kind of voicemail on hold stuff. To lots of little short explainer videos. I do a lot of long form medical, scientific, technical. That's my specialty. That's where I shine. That's what I love to do. That's my favorite stuff because there's just so much great learning in there. So nonfiction audiobooks, I could just read nonfiction audiobooks all day and be happy about it. So anyway, I'm so excited to be here on this podcast, and I clearly, even without a script, can talk and 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 talk. So I'm just going to be quiet now and see if that's enough of $1 million answer to get me to the $1 million one question.
So Growing up, what sparked your interest in audio production? Did you like reading out loud?
I did like reading out loud. I did. And like I said, because I was born blind, I had the opportunity to learn Braille at a relatively young age, 5 years old, 6 years old. I was learning Braille when my sighted peers were learning print. So I took to it. I really loved it. I can remember sitting with a very beginner Braille book, and it had like these X's, and then it would have a space and a Braille letter, and then a bunch of X's, and then a space and another Braille letter, almost as if the little X's were like a way to teach tracking your fingers across the lines. And I remember the shape of that, but I also remember that in the beginning, when I first saw that book, I had it. I couldn't read it. I would sit in my parents' bed and use my whole hands and like run my hands over the pages and pretend to tell a story as if I was reading. So I was excited about it, and I picked it up really fast. And I liked academics. School, at least for elementary school, was a good place for me. I was mainstreamed. I don't think they call it mainstreaming anymore, but
that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that term? What's that archaic term? Yeah, mainstreamed. I went to my neighborhood school from first grade on. For kindergarten, I was bused 2 hours away to like a resource room kind of classroom. But then from first grade on, I went to just my neighborhood school and did that all throughout pretty much my schooling days, except when I decided not to. But that's another story. Yeah, so I was like the only blind kid there most of the time. And I had an itinerant teacher who came to me and taught me the stuff, and aides who came in and brailled worksheets and things like that. And I liked school. I loved English. I liked to write. I loved to read. This is a really long-winded answer. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say this.
Great
that
answer.
What I started out with, though, that I haven't alluded to yet, was that my parents brought a baby grand piano home when I was 2 years old. And the story goes that I got up on the bench and I started playing only with my thumbs, and then it took me a couple weeks to figure out that I could play with all of my fingers. And I went to nursery school, which is yet another archaic term because I think now we call it preschool, right? Mm-hmm. Or pre-K.
We're old.
And yeah, so
I was just tripping
really
that you
are.
said itinerant teacher, or
Yeah.
itinerant teacher, and I was just like, wow,
a
I haven't
vision
heard
teacher.
that since the 70s, man.
Yeah, right? I know. Well, I don't understand this whole a vision teacher.
GBI and all that. Yeah.
What is this vision teacher?
Yeah,
There's no
VI.
vision teacher because I don't have any sight.
Yeah.
So, a TVI, I get that, teacher of the visually impaired.
Right.
That I can get, but vision teacher?
I've never heard that term, actually.
Yeah.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
Yeah, we're
So
old
yeah, so I went to nursery school, and it's the story goes that I came home and I started playing London Bridge is Falling Down. Like that was the first song I picked out on the piano. So yeah, my parents had this baby grand, and I just started playing and kind of picking stuff out on my own. I started really formal classical training when I was 7. Up until that point, I just kind of played on my own.
So can you read tactile music?
I'm a terrible Braille music reader. Terrible. I've learned the very basics of it on my own as an adult. It was not something that was offered to me as a child, and by the time it was offered, or at least hinted at, I was pretty close to quitting my classical training, and I never picked it up.
Did you develop perfect pitch?
Yeah, I have perfect pitch. Yes.
That's awesome, man. I wish I had a tone generator with me right now. I love, our one of our managers where we work, Shane Snyder, actually has perfect pitch, and he'll come into the music room and Shane, what's this note? And I'll hit like 2 notes or play a simple chord, and he'll just rattle them off. He need like 2 or 3 notes, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a thing. I understand there's a genetic component to it as well. At least that's what I've heard.
I don't think I have it.
So, yeah. I have it, and my parents almost got divorced over an organ. They bought not like a churchy organ, but like a Kimball organ with 2 keyboards and the little buttons that had different drum beats and things like that. And I was like 5 years old, and playing piano, and my mother did not want this thing, and my dad thought it would be great to help teach me arranging. So there was that, and then the piano was in the living room. And my dad had an old reel-to-reel, old Sony 2-track reel-to-reel recorder. It wasn't really. It's a 2-track in the sense that it had 2 channels, a left and a right. Right.
Yeah.
So, but you could record them independently.
And you could play backwards.
Yes, you could. Yes, which was really fun. And there were 3 speeds, too. So you could really get creative with, different, hi, I'm a chipmunk, kinds of sounds.
Yeah.
Or really slow, just something goofy stuff. Made your tapes last longer. So that was kind of my first. That was my first multi-track experience. I had lots of tape recorders before then. I remember sitting on a tape recorder, a cassette recorder, when I was like 3 or something like that. It's one of my earliest memories, and I broke it. So I broke a lot of recorders. Tape recorders, record players, and I have to hand it to my dad. He and both my parents, but really my dad was the one I think who pushed it more, and my mom tolerated it and certainly supported it. But I had the reel-to-reel. I had a piano. At some point, I ended up with a Roland JX 3-piece synth. And a Lin 2 drum machine.
You had a Lin? Oh, wow.
I did. I had a Lin 2. Yep. And I remember we used to go to the NAMM show. My dad and I would go to the NAMM show every year. For those listening, they're like, the what? It's the National Association of Music Merchants. And when I was a kid, it was out in Anaheim, near Disneyland in California. I grew up in California, so it wasn't like we had to fly anywhere or anything like that. Like it was, it was in our backyard almost, not quite, but in the same state. I was in Simi Valley in Ventura County, and so the NAMM show wasn't that far away. It was easy to just drive there and drive home at the end of the day. So yeah, we used to have all sorts of fun doing that kind of stuff when I was a kid. And so the studio started in the living room, and then it moved out to the garage. And then it moved out to a completely separate building outside of the house. Like it was still on our property, but, you'd walk out into the backyard and you'd cross, this little sidewalk area, and you'd walk into the actual, honest-to-goodness, completely separate studio. So when I was, 12, 13 years old, we were renting this out to local artists, and people would come in, and I would do whatever needed to be done. So sometimes that meant I was engineering on an analog board, or I was arranging, or, I was doing backing vocals, or whatever it was that the people who came in didn't do. If you had a band, they did all their stuff. But if you had, just a singer, somebody had to put the music underneath it. So I grew up as a musician. And so yes, the reading out loud, I liked to do that. But what really helped, I would say, was I was given a lot of opportunity. I had a lot of technology and a lot of support to grow musically as a child, but not just from the standpoint of playing an instrument, but from the standpoint of learning all the technical stuff as well. And that really has served me well.
That is cool.
I'm envious. Actually, I am. What a wonderful environment to grow up in, because
yeah, it's pretty great.
As you were talking, that was just normal to you. That wasn't really probably
it really was
special, was it?
It really was.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So at some point you moved from Southern California to the Bay Area?
I moved from Southern California when I was 18, and I moved to Alaska. I moved to Fairbanks, Alaska.
Wow. On your own?
A year. Yeah, I went to college up there.
What was it like?
failed a bunch of classes, had a really great time, loved ice skating, ate moose and Dowell sheep and caribou, and just had a wonderful time bouncing all over the tundra. And I loved it. I had a great time. It was a great year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you use a cane or a dog?
I used a cane at the time.
How was that?
Yeah, I know, right? Like I look back and I'm like, wow, I was so young, and oh, I did. It was freezing cold.
Oh my gosh!
What was I thinking?
I have a hard enough time walking on concrete, let alone any slick or icy or snowy surfaces.
Okay, but I think that the difference between snowy, icy in like New York State is really different than what it is in Fairbanks, Alaska. Because in Fairbanks, Alaska, at least back then, climate change is a thing. Yeah. So it might be somewhat different now, but it's really dry in the wintertime.
Gotcha.
So all the snow comes down. It's a squeaky, squelchy kind of snow.
It's not slushy.
Yeah, it's snow, and it's not going anywhere because for, months out of the year, it's below freezing. It's not going to,
it's solid.
You might go from 40 below to 0 or, 20 below to, 10 or something, but you're not going to go above 32. So your roads might be more icy, but your walking spaces like around the campus weren't really like that. They plowed and they moved the snow out of the way because, you had snow on the ground for months. So, if it snows in Seattle, everybody has a fit because the city's not really prepared to deal with that. It shuts everything down and it kind of confuses people and nobody knows how to drive. But, in Fairbanks, it's a common enough thing that it wasn't like that. And I remember that I never had Yak Tracks or anything like that. Do you know what Yak Tracks are? They're these things that you can put them on the bottom of your shoes, and they have like little spikes.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know
things
that's
that
what
dig
they
in.
Oh, I thought it was a hunting technique.
No, they're really, really cool. When I used to live in Albany in New York, I live in Clifton Park now, which is this rural suburbia kind of space that is not a particularly walkable space. But when I used to live in Albany and walk places, I'd put these Yak Tracks on my shoes because they would just grip the ice and the sidewalk. They were great.
So are they like
They're
golf
amazing.
spikes or?
They make different kinds.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them just look like imagine taking springs and like a springs would be vertical in your hands if they're up and down. Imagine laying them flat.
Okay.
So horizontal. So they're just these horizontal springy like things that
Dig in.
pull them around and you pull them around your shoes so you can pop them right off your shoes and put them in a plastic bag or whatever. So when you go indoors, you can take them right off.
You're not tearing up the flooring.
Yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah.
They're really cool.
Yeah, I would definitely need those because like I said, I'm challenged on the best of days in the best of
I hear you.
Mm-hmm. So
Well, and the older that we get too, the more I think some of that it's a mindset challenge. At least it is for me. It's like, oh, if I fall, I'm not 70. I'm not going to break my hip, and it's going to be a hip replacement problem. But it's going to be a problem. You know what I mean? It's going to be an issue, right?
Yep. Could be dangerous.
I'm not as resilient as I once was.
Thank God for the Apple Watch. It's got that I've fallen and I can't get
Yeah,
up
exactly.
alert,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I lived in Alaska for a year, and then I moved to Seattle. And I lived in Seattle for 11 years, and that's where I met my husband. That's where I had my daughter. And then we moved to New York, which was just a wild and crazy, what in the world were we thinking? But we've been here since 2005. And so I've been here almost as long as I lived in California.
So going out on your own, was it what you expected? What did you learn about yourself?
I think what I learned when I went to Alaska was that I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So when I was a kid, there was always an expectation that I was going to go to high school and then I was going to go to college and then, have a career, whatever that was going to be. But there was always an expectation of college. But I got to college and then it was like, wow, now I'm not I'm not at home anymore. And there's all of this flexibility and what do I really want to do with myself? And there's all this fun to be had. And so I just screwed around for a while for figuring out who I was and what I wanted to do. And it really did take me a while. So, so there's the honesty in that regard. Yeah.
I think that's the best part sometimes. Figuring out where you're going to go, finding yourself, finding your niche.
Yeah. And I actually, I didn't finish my bachelor's until 2008. Like, I was in college in Fairbanks in the 1990s, but I didn't finish. I came out of Fairbanks and moved to Seattle and took a couple of college classes, but then didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I had some jobs and worked for me. And then I met my husband and we got married and had a baby. And then I was a stay-at-home mom. And fast forward a whole bunch of years, like a whole bunch of years. And I was doing things like, I was playing music at a church every Sunday morning. Like, that was a gig. And I was playing out at local restaurants and things like that. And my husband, his name is Tom, by the way.
Hi, Tom.
He's got the easy name.
Tom.
Hi, Tom. So he was told that his job was going to disappear. The company was moving. And we could go with them if we wanted to move to some remote part of New Hampshire, which we just really didn't want to do. So I knew that he was going to lose his job. And I needed to do something. And I had a friend who came to me and said, all excitedly, that she had gone and taken some voiceover classes and they were going to do demos for her and she was having a great time and it was really fun. And it's not like I had never thought about voiceover, and I had done a little bit of it when I was growing up. But I always had this idea that I was going to do it myself. I was going to make my own demos and write my own scripts and all that. And I just never really was going to do that. You always have best intentions. Oh, I can do it myself. I have all the skills. Yeah, well. So I saw her do this and I thought, oh, how cool. How cool to just get the basics of it done. Just go get the demo done. Go get a little bit of voice coaching, get the demo done. And I also looked at her and, she could use things like Word and Excel and stuff like that, but she had no experience with digital audio workstations like Reaper or SoundForge or, anything. Just that was not what she knew. And not that those skills can't be learned, but those were skills I already had.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, if she can do it and she doesn't have any of these skills, and this was a chunk of change. I mean, this was a few $1,000s. It was not, it was one of these voiceover farms that, claims they're going to send you off with everything and it's going to be wonderful and they're going to teach you, but she did it. She just jumped and expected that there would be a net. And I thought, God, if she can do this, I can do this. So I did it. And I got my first demos. And I had replaced them within 6 months. And then I replaced them again like another 6 months later. So, yeah. So, I mean, it really, really took me a long, long time to sort of come back around to voiceover and really embrace it. And I fell in love with it. Once I actually really started auditioning and getting into it, I was hooked.
Do you have a manager or do you get the gigs on your own? Is it through reputation? How does that work?
At this point, I get everything on my own. I just haven't gone and pounded the pavement for the representation, quite honestly. So that's on me. But I get all the gigs on my own through a combination of just direct marketing to businesses and production houses. And I'm still on the online casting sites. I built my career on the online casting sites, sometimes called pay-to-play sites. You pay an annual fee and you create a profile, and based on the stuff that's in your profile, you get opportunities, auditions sent to you. And, you can audition all day long, and it's a numbers game. Somebody's going to hire you. I know these days a lot of people do things on Fiverr and things like that. I've never gone down that route. It's a nice free way to get into it because you don't, there's no payment to a site up front. But your rates are often going to be lower in doing something like that. And you have to really build social credibility. Whereas on the online casting sites, you pay the fees and you put up your profile, and you do have to put up a really, great profile. You want to just make sure it's clean and done and well tagged and, all that kind of stuff. It does matter. But your rates start at much better options on an online casting site.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And these days there's a lot of repeat work. I mean, I've been doing this for 9 years. I'm going into year 10. April's my anniversary month.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a lot of just clients that just show up.
So you won a competition from and what was it? Was it a pitch contest, Satauna?
So the competition was Hadley's new business venture competition.
Yeah.
And I did it the first year they had it, which was 2016. And you had to write a business plan and take one of the courses in their Forsyth Institute business curriculum. So yeah, I was one of the 3 people that won that first year, and that was really fun. And Colleen Wunderlich, who runs that, is just so awesome. She's so great. Shout out to Colleen.
So how did you hear about the contest, and what was the process of getting into the contest? Did you have to write up the proposal and a model? How many people were in the contest?
So I don't remember how I found out about the contest, but I don't know if I saw it on a mailing list or I don't remember at all how I found out. Maybe somebody forwarded it to me. I don't know. And I found out towards close to the end of it, and I thought, I'm not going to have time to do this. And I'd never written a business plan in my life. And, I just went into this voiceover thing and I was just winging it, okay, well, yeah, I should have a business plan, but I never created one. So then it was like, how do I do this? What am I going to do? So I made it work. I spent a lot of time figuring it out. And what was really fun about writing that business plan, and you had to, you had some Excel spreadsheets. You had to come up with, what was your projected income going to be, and what was your budget going to look like, and, the profit and loss and the whole thing. What were your assets? And, you had to put some financials out there. You had to prove that you had an idea that wasn't just some flash in the pan, but that you had an idea of who your customers were and how you were going to provide services to them and what those services were going to be, and, a business plan. So, but by the time I had to do this, I had been doing it for 3 years. So I wasn't researching an idea that I was going to do. I was talking about something I was already doing. I knew who my customers were. So it was really easy for me, and it was actually shocking. Like, I sat down and started writing, and I thought, my God, I know more than I think I do. This is not as hard as I thought it was going to be. The parts that were hard were the financial parts, right? Like, okay, how good am I at Excel? And this workbook works in this worksheet, works into this worksheet where, there's multiple worksheets within the workbook. And, okay, there's the formulas, and I've never done it this way. But the actual, articulating what my business was, who my customers were, how I was going to do what I did, and why it was going to work and continue to work, those were really easy things for me to state and talk about. So yeah, all you had to do was, create a business plan. and, come up with financials that prove that it wasn't just some wild idea that you had, that it was really a legitimate business. I mean, they were giving away $30,000, so they split it between three of us, but still that's a chunk of change, even between three people. So what I loved is that the three of us that won were all women. All women. It was pretty cool. So that was fun. Yeah, really great experience. And they flew us out to Chicago, and we all got to hang out there for a while and talk about it and be in it, and it was great.
I want to go back to something you just said a minute ago. You made a point about it was all women that won, and in audio production, my experience has been it is typically dominated by males. What are your thoughts on that? What's been your experience?
Well, just as a point of information, mine was an audio business that won, but the other two were not.
Okay.
Right. So yes, it was all women that won, but we were not all audio people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In terms of voiceover, I think that is changing for sure. There's a lot of room for women these days. Absolutely. So yes, I think there are levels. You've got your people who are on, really cheap voiceover sites or places like Fiverr and Upwork and stuff like that. And I kind of sort of the Walmart voiceovers, if you will, where, somebody comes in and wants a voiceover done for as cheaply as possible with unlimited revisions and, just crazy stuff that nobody should be giving away.
Right.
And then you sort of got the middle tier of the online casting where you pay to be on these sites and you get these opportunities. You're still very much a commodity in that space because, within an hour you can have 30, 40 auditions. It's audition early, audition often. That's the thing. If you're going to do this, if you want to be a weekend warrior or do it in the evenings, yeah, you can. It's possible. There are ways to filter the jobs and things like that on the online casting site so that you're looking at jobs that have the least number of responses so that you can get in there. But really, it's a numbers game on sites like that. But the rates are better, for sure. And on sites like that, a lot of times you can set your own rates. So, somebody's going to come in with a budget range. You can always go above their budget range or within their budget range or whatever the case is. But you have flexibility in what your rates are in a way and there's generally a minimum. It's $100 minimum on a site like that.
Is there a scale that you follow? How do you not undercut other folks in the industry? Is that an issue?
Oh, well, that is a problem. And that is why a lot of industry folks who have been around for, 20, 30 years, really, you find some serious disapproval of these online casting sites.
I bet.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, quality definitely takes a hit. And
so the reason that, and I think people at the top too, I think there's still a lot of, I think there's a lot of men at the top. I mean, you still have, like in New York, there's the New York Women in Film and Television. It's called NYWIFT. So I think in a lot of places, it is still fairly male dominated, but I think it is getting better. One of the things I would say is that with movements like Black Lives Matter, you really do see people talking in their auditions when they write job descriptions about, hey, we're looking for African American so-and-so, we're looking for LGBTQ, we're looking for, they get very specific about what they want. What you generally don't see is when they're talking about disability, there is no mention of, oh, and by the way, we'd really like some disabled talent to apply. And we're going to, you'll see things like, well, we're really looking for an African-American talent. Or sometimes you'll see, people of color preferred, but not necessary. But, there's a preference. There are these things that are coming out. That the DEI stuff is making its way into voiceover. But you don't see that as much with disability. You still see these organizations who are, I see descriptions, I see auditions for audio description, or I see auditions for organizations that are doing training on how to work with people with disabilities, or programs that relate to people with disabilities, or organizations who are promoting their services that are for people with disabilities and how they help people with disabilities. And there's no mention in those auditions about, oh, and by the way, we would give preference to people with disabilities. Like it doesn't show up. So it's interesting to me.
Can you describe a typical work day?
I should have a typical work day. I'm terrible at having a typical work day. I would probably be one of these people that would be like diagnosed with non-24, because I just roam. I start out so good, and I'm up with my husband. It's like 5:30 in the morning. He gets up. He's a morning person. He's always been a morning person. And he's up, and I'm making his coffee, and he's making breakfast. Thank goodness he makes breakfast. Woohoo.
What?
I'll feed the dog, make the coffee, you make breakfast. Yay. And but then I can hang on to that for about 3 weeks, and then I start sliding. And then it's 6:30 and 8:30. And then I'm up at night, So I've had these occasions where people in Sweden, I'm like, okay, it's 3 a.m. and we'll just do a Skype at 3 a.m. It's like you're 9 a.m. It'll be perfect. Mm-hmm. And they're like, are you serious? But why are you sure that you don't want to do it in the daytime when it's our 4 p.m.? And I'm like, no, please, I'm up at that hour. Let's not do 9 o'clock in the morning for me, So I should have a better handle on my time. A typical day. I usually try to audition every day. I don't always make it these days. When I was young and new to the process, I would audition really religiously almost every day. And these days I just don't, because there's work, and work comes in without me auditioning. I don't have to, if you will. Like today, a client of mine from India just sent me 6 scripts.
Wow.
Hi, can you get these back to us as soon as possible? I didn't know this was going to happen. They just appeared. Wow. So some days are more flexible in terms of adding auditions and things like that into my space. And some days are more full of really fun things like, actual work, or where I don't get the flexibility is when I have directed sessions. Like this, what we're doing here is not a directed session, but it is a time slot where I am hanging out with people. So I can't, decide that I'm going to move it back 2 hours while I take a long lunch. You know what I mean? So directed sessions are like that. I'm usually in a Zoom room or a Google Meet, or on something like Source Connect or IPDTL, which they're sort of like beefed up Zooms, but they're actually the studio on the other side is recording me at a high quality level.
Gotcha.
So it's great because they have engineers on the other side, and they can be wherever. And so you've got people in the room with you, the virtual room with you, who are directing what you're doing, which is great because all I have to do is read and relax, and they're going to tell me how they want me to read it. So if I read it in a way that they don't like, we'll just take it again.
That's cool.
Fabulous. I want every client to have a directed session with me.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Can you talk about work-life balance and how do you handle that?
Oh my God.
The loaded
I don't
question.
think I'm not perfect at work-life balance, that's for sure. I love my work. I feel like I spent a lot of time being a stay-at-home mom, and that worked. And I don't regret it, but I didn't have a worky sort of career-y thing going for a long time, and I love what I do. I really do. I think if my work-life balance were going to get better, really, I keep talking. It was better before the pandemic. It was better when I was traveling more and that kind of thing. I feel like it's a little messy right now because I'm just not out and about as much as I was before the pandemic. Actually, before the pandemic, I had this document and I was planning like traveling every month. I'm going to go to this conference this month and I'm going to go do this thing this month and this place. And I was planning stuff, and then the pandemic hit and all of that just fell apart. So I went down to North Carolina last year over Christmas. Tom and I went and stayed for a couple days with my family. But that is, for me, the holidays are just stressful. There's all this obligation stuff that comes up, and I don't like it. So I need to get out of my own way more and during the holidays, I have to say. But yeah, I feel like I'm doing a terrible job of answering this question.
No, you're doing a great
and I hate
job.
my answer.
This is great, and this is real, though.
This is real.
It is real, but oh God, it's like it's a terrible answer.
It's authentic, and I think that's what people want to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Brandie, the $1 million one question. Remember.
Oh, we had to wait this long to get to the $1 million one? Ooh. Okay.
So what's something that people don't know about you that might surprise them?
Wow. Well, okay. Well, I don't know what would be surprising. I can tell you a bunch of things. One of the things that I used to do that it was a ton of fun and so goofy is I was the piano player for a local improv group. It was so much fun. So they would do this thing where they would do a musical, and so the beginning would be, the first act would be each person in the troupe would get up and somebody would introduce them and introduce the nomination for the Tony Awards that they were going to go sing, and then they would sing their nomination. And, of course, it was all improvised. Mm-hmm. So all that they would give is a song title, and then I would play something in what I thought was the style of that song title or whatever, and they would make up the words, and it was so much fun. And then all of the titles would be put in a basket, and the audience would get to vote in the intermission as to which musical they wanted to hear, like who was the winner. Uh-huh. And so we'd come back for the second act, and the title would be selected, and then the entire second act was a musical built around that title, a completely improvised musical built
That's awesome.
that title.
Oh my gosh.
And it was so fun.
How
it was
fun.
Really a lot of fun.
And
yeah.
So that's awesome. I would be terrible. I was awful at improv. I was terrible at improv. I just didn't have what it took. I had friends that were great at it, but improv was not my forte. I did much better with the script.
But in all honesty, Satauna, I see a correlation between that and you having the ability to read cold copy and then go into your characters and your voices.
Yeah. That's sure.
Awesome.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. It was really great.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to bring up? Social media would be a good thing as well, too.
So where can we find you on social media?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Satauna H. You can find me on Facebook. All you have to do is search my name, because with a name like Satauna, I am so not hidden in the world. I have to really behave myself. I can't, be really mean or angry or flame people. I feel like it just has to. I am not Jennifer. There is no Beth here. It's like Satauna is just an uncommon name. It's like me and one other person. I think they're in Indonesia. So I'm so findable. My name is spelled Sataun, like November, A. So think sat, like I sat down, Auna. And there I am. So my website is www.satauna.com. You can email me at info@satauna.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I know people hate LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn. It's a great place to find network people and professional, and I like LinkedIn. So I am out there. I'm out there, but I will say this: every year. It's like, it's a New Year's resolution. I'm going to get great at social media. I'm just going to rock the social media universe. And I never do it.
It's a whole nother job in itself.
It really is. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, have you ever declined a gig and why?
Yeah, I have. Sometimes I decline a gig because somebody's rate is just ridiculous and I won't do it. Given the amount of words or what they want me to do or how fast they want me to turn it around, or, they're overseas. And if you're overseas and it's a small gig and so it's a lower rate, I'm happy to work with you, but you're going to pay me up front because I can't. It's way harder to collect, right, from somebody who's not in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I was more open to doing a wider range of political topics when I started my voiceover career. It was sometimes really fun to be on the side of the party to whom I do not affiliate. And so, and just, what does that feel like? How does it feel to say these things? I struggle to do that now because it's just so, I think we're in a space where I feel really, really passionate about things that I think are being kind of taken away and eroded in our country that I can't. It's pretty hard to be on the other side of the fence for me these days. So yes, I will decline a gig based on political grounds sometimes, or things like that.
Understandable. Yeah.
Two more items. Please. I know we're going over. Sorry. I really appreciate this.
Oh, no, this is great.
And if
I feel like I have just talked your ears off, and I should have given you shorter answers.
So the truth is, I'm supposed to go with my wife in like 20 minutes to go pick up our grandsons. Otherwise, I'd stay on here all afternoon. I wish I would have put one.
Oh, got it. Okay. All right. So you really do have a hard out. Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
The questions I'd like to ask, and Brandie, we can overdub these too if we need to. Where would you like to be in 5 years, and would you be willing to record the intro tag? I almost forgot about that one.
Yes, I'm happy to record the intro tag.
Okay.
Where would I like to be in 5 years? I think that this is one of these interesting things that Tahiti, Maui, yeah, maybe. Tom and I went to London in 2017. We loved it.
I love London. I want to go back to
God.
London so bad.
I just, I know that if you live in London, you fuss about the underground, but I got to tell you, I loved it. I loved it.
That here,
I still cherish my Oyster card.
Oh my gosh.
Man, I loved it. Yeah. Where do I want to be in 5 years? I feel like I'm in this space of, okay, I've been doing voiceover. I'm going into year 10, and I almost feel, oddly enough, and I did not think this would happen when I started, that I'm in this reinventing myself space right now. Again. So where do I want to be in 5 years? I still want to be doing voiceover, but I really, really, really have been talking and thinking and, scratching my head and have ideas about blogs and YouTube channels and content like that. And that's been in my head for like 3 or 4 years at least. And my daughter picks on me about it. Just do it. Just get up and do it. Come on, Mom. And she's right. So I would love to be blogging and YouTubing and TikToking and speaking and just doing more stuff like that.